Learn English through story. The dance of seduction. In the world of love, lust, and betrayal, there exists a fine line between desire and deception, trust and doubt. The dance of seduction is not merely a physical dance, but a metaphorical one, a constant push and pull between passion, manipulation, and the fragile boundaries of the heart. Amelia Williams, a vibrant and independent woman in her late 20s, had always prided herself on her ability to control her emotions and desires. A successful marketing consultant living in a bustling city, she lived a life that was well structured and pragmatic. She had long since learned to keep her personal life separate from her professional endeavors, focusing on her career and maintaining a strict balance between work and social circles. She had been in a few relationships, but none of them had managed to capture her heart in the way she had always envisioned. One evening, at a prestigious event hosted by one of her high-profile clients, Amelia found herself standing alone on the balcony, gazing at the shimmering skyline. She had just delivered a pitch that would likely seal a major deal for her company. The wind was cool against her skin, and the bustling energy of the party inside was almost soothing in its distance. Amelia didn't mind the solitude. She was a woman comfortable in her own company. It was then that she noticed him, Adam Blake, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his presence commanding and enigmatic. Adam stood at the far end of the balcony, seemingly lost in thought. His eyes flicked to hers as she turned her gaze toward him, and for a brief moment, there was an undeniable spark. He held her attention in a way that no one else in the room had, and she felt an unspoken challenge in the air. Adam Blake was not a man she would typically be drawn to. He was a renowned entrepreneur known for his mysterious allure, an unapproachable aura, and a reputation for breaking hearts. He had made a name for himself by acquiring struggling companies and turning them into successes, his mind sharp and his intentions always hidden beneath layers of charm. In his world, people were tools and relationships were transactions. But tonight, as their eyes locked, something shifted. Amelia felt an attraction she wasn't prepared for. She had been determined to avoid unnecessary distractions, especially from a man like Adam. Yet, something about the way he studied her stirred a curiosity, a challenge that she could not ignore. He broke the silence first, his voice smooth and confident. "I thought I might find you out here, away from the crowd." Amelia raised an eyebrow, surprised by his comment. "You were looking for me?" she asked, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "More like I was waiting for the right moment to approach," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "You have a presence that's hard to miss." She chuckled softly, intrigued by his audacity. "I'm not used to being stalked at events like these." He grinned, clearly unfazed by her response. "It's not stalking if you're interested in the same thing." The banter between them flowed effortlessly. Amelia felt her walls slowly crumble, but she couldn't decide whether to embrace this newfound connection or protect herself from it. She had heard the rumors about Adam, the countless women who had fallen for his charm, only to be discarded when he grew bored. He was a man who toyed with emotions, never allowing anyone to get too close, yet always making them feel as if they were the center of his universe. But tonight, something was different. Adam was attentive, his gaze intense but not overpowering, and his words lingered in her mind long after they spoke. The dance had begun, and neither of them was ready to admit how much they were already invested in it. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed repeatedly. Business meetings, social gatherings, and even casual encounters around the city seemed to place them in each other's orbit. Each time Adam and Amelia met, their chemistry was undeniable. There was an unspoken attraction that simmered between them, building in intensity with each passing interaction. Amelia, usually in control of her emotions and desires, found herself increasingly drawn to him. His charm was intoxicating. He spoke with a magnetic confidence that made her feel both seen and special. He seemed to know exactly what to say to make her feel at ease, yet simultaneously intrigued and challenged. Adam was a master of the art of seduction, but unlike other men, he didn't rely on typical tactics. He wove a narrative of vulnerability and power, making Amelia feel like the center of his universe. One moment, then distant and mysterious. The next. One evening, after a dinner meeting, Adam invited her to his private apartment overlooking the city. She hesitated, her instincts telling her to be cautious. But curiosity got the better of her. She arrived at his sleek, modern penthouse, greeted by the faint sound of classical music playing softly in the background. "I don't usually invite people over," Adam said, offering her a glass of wine. "But I have to admit, there's something about you that makes me want to break all my rules." Amelia accepted the drink, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she was walking a dangerous line. Everything in her told her to leave, to walk away from this flirtation before it turned into something more complicated. But she also knew that she couldn't resist the magnetic pull between them. She wanted to know what it was about him that made her feel both alive and unsettled. She wanted to see how far this dance would go. As the night progressed, their conversation shifted from casual topics to more personal ones. Adam spoke of his past, his childhood, his family, and his rise to success. There was a vulnerability in his words, and for a brief moment, Amelia allowed herself to believe that maybe he was different from the rumors. Maybe he was not just a man of power and conquest, but someone who had experienced loss, pain, and longing. The evening grew late, and the air between them grew thick with anticipation. Adam moved closer, his presence undeniable. Amelia's pulse quickened as he reached for her hand, his fingers warm against her skin. The temptation to give in was overwhelming. She wanted to feel his lips on hers, to lose herself in the intensity of the moment. But something inside her still resisted. "I know what you want," Adam murmured, his voice slow and hypnotic. Amelia met his gaze, her breath shallow. "Do you?" she replied, her voice trembling. He leaned in closer, his lips brushing her ear. "I want you," he whispered, his words sending a shiver down her spine. "But I'm not in a rush. I want to make you want me." The dance had evolved from playful banter to something more primal, more intimate. Adam had never pursued someone with such patience, but Amelia was different. She didn't give herself easily, and that challenge stirred something deep inside him. He wanted to conquer her, but he also wanted her to surrender willingly. Amelia's mind raced. She had always prided herself on being in control, but in Adam's presence, she felt a loss of control that both terrified and thrilled her. She wanted to give in, but she also feared the consequences. Could she trust him? Would she lose herself in this dance of seduction, only to be discarded when he was bored? It was inevitable. The night they both had been dancing around arrived. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Adam invited her to a private dinner at a secluded restaurant. The ambience was intimate, dim lighting, soft music, and a sense of secrecy that felt intoxicating. As they sat across from each other, the chemistry was undeniable. "Tonight, I'm not going to hold back," Adam said, his voice steady but filled with intent. "I want you, Amelia, and I think you want me too." Amelia's heart raced as she stared into his eyes. There was no more pretending, no more avoidance. She knew what was at stake. She knew that crossing this line could change everything between them, but she couldn't deny the pull, the desire that had been building between them for weeks. "I don't want to play games anymore," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The air between them crackled with tension as they both stood, drawn to each other like magnets. This was the moment that would either make or break them. In the aftermath, Amelia found herself questioning everything. She had succumbed to temptation, but in doing so, she realized that seduction, while thrilling, could also lead to emotional devastation if one wasn't careful. Adam had been everything she had wanted in the moment: charismatic, powerful, and irresistible. But she also knew that seduction without trust was hollow. She had learned that while passion could ignite the heart, it was the quieter, steadier emotions, respect, trust, and understanding that truly sustained a relationship. Seduction had its place, but it was never the foundation of lasting love. The true moral of the dance of seduction was that while passion is a beautiful thing, it should never overshadow the need for honesty, communication, and mutual respect. Without these, Even the most exhilarating dance could leave both parties lost in its wake, never truly finding what they sought in each other. The story of the dance of seduction explores the fine line between passion and manipulation, desire and respect. True intimacy is not just about giving into physical attraction or playing games of seduction, but about building a foundation of trust, honesty, and understanding. While seduction can be thrilling, it should never cloud the deeper emotional connection that makes love meaningful and lasting. Weeks passed after that night. Amelia tried to keep her emotions in check, keeping her interactions with Adam professional and guarded. But the dance they had begun, the slow rhythm of attraction and restraint, left a mark on her. She found herself haunted by the intimacy they shared, the way his touch lingered in her memory, the warmth of his breath on her neck, the magnetic pull that seemed to draw her to him despite her best intentions. She could no longer ignore it. Amelia's well-constructed life began to crumble in small but significant ways. The moments they shared replayed in her mind, her thoughts of him lingering even during work meetings or casual outings with friends. Her once secure walls of control had started to weaken, and it frightened her. But she wasn't the only one feeling the consequences of their actions. Adam, for all his confidence and charm, had underestimated how deeply Amelia had affected him. He was a man who had always been able to compartmentalize. Relationships were just temporary indulgences, nothing more. But Amelia had proven to be different. She was strong, self-assured, and seemed to understand him in ways that no one else had. And it unsettled him. His usual routine of pursuit of winning over women with his charm and wit had been turned upside down by Amelia. The games that had once been so effortless now felt exhausting. He found himself drawn to her, not just for her beauty or intellect, but for the ways she made him feel exposed. She didn't fawn over him or get lost in his flattery. She was challenging him in ways no one ever had. And yet, in his quest to have her fully, to make her his own, Adam found himself losing control in a way he hadn't experienced before. Adam was used to playing with people's emotions, not letting anyone get too close. But with Amelia, he was being drawn into the depths of his own desires and insecurities. His usual strategy, playing hard to get, keeping an emotional distance, was backfiring. The more he tried to dominate the situation, the more he felt himself losing power. The last thing he wanted was to become vulnerable to someone. Yet, in his mind, he couldn't help but feel that he was starting to care for Amelia in ways he never had for anyone else. It was on a rainy Thursday evening when everything began to unravel. Adam had invited Amelia to another private dinner, but this time there was a difference in the way he approached her. The usual cool, collected Adam had been replaced by someone more intense, more desperate. His eyes lingered on her, scanning her face as if searching for something, some sign that she felt the same pull. He did. They had just finished dinner, the remnants of the meal pushed aside as they sat facing each other. Adam broke the silence first, his voice low, almost unrecognizable. "Amelia," he began, his eyes locking with hers. "We've danced around this long enough. I want you to be mine. I don't want to keep pretending that this, whatever this is, can just be casual anymore." Amelia felt a chill creep up her spine. It wasn't the words that frightened her. It was the intensity behind them. She had suspected this moment would come, the moment where Adam would make his move, where he would push for something more. But she hadn't expected it to feel like this, a forceful declaration that felt less like love and more like ownership. For a brief moment, Amelia's mind raced. She had always prided herself on being independent, on making her own decisions. She had let herself be swept into this affair. But now she wondered if it was more than she had bargained for. She didn't want to be just another conquest for Adam. She didn't want to lose herself in the chaos of his seduction. And yet, she could feel the magnetic pull of him, the way his words wrapped around her like a vice. "I think we need to talk about what we want," Amelia said, her voice steady but betraying a hint of vulnerability. Adam's expression softened for the first time in weeks. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her skin. "I want you, Amelia. No games, no more pretending." Amelia met his gaze, seeing the raw sincerity in his eyes. It was tempting, so tempting, to give in to his words, to let herself be swept away by the passion between them. But deep down, she knew that giving in completely would be a mistake. She had been burned before by love and desire that had no foundation. She had to protect herself. She had to be strong. "I don't know if I can be the woman you want me to be," she said, pulling her hand back gently. "I'm not someone who falls easily, Adam, and I'm not someone who can be owned." Adam's face darkened, his lips tightening. "You're not someone who falls easily. I get that. But don't pretend that this doesn't mean something to you too." Amelia stood up abruptly, her heart pounding. "I need some space. I need to think about this. I don't want to rush into something just because it feels good in the moment." Adam stood as well, his expression hardening. "So, what? You want to walk away from this? After everything we've shared?" She met his gaze, her heart aching with the decision she had to make. "I need to walk away, Adam, before we both lose ourselves." The weeks that followed were some of the most difficult Amelia had ever faced. She tried to focus on work, to keep herself distracted by the demands of her job, but she couldn't escape the emotional tug-of-war between her desire for Adam and her need for self-preservation. Her thoughts would often drift back to him. The way his touch had set her skin on fire. The way his voice had sounded, so full of promise, and yet, she couldn't ignore the danger in becoming too entangled in his world. It was clear to her that the affair had never been about love. It had been about the intoxicating power of desire and control. And when she looked at it that way, she knew she had made the right decision. But it didn't make it any easier. Adam, too, struggled in the aftermath of their breakup. He had never cared about someone the way he had cared about Amelia, and her rejection shook him to his core. He was used to being the one in control, but for the first time, he realized that the one person he truly wanted had slipped through his fingers. Their final conversation, months after their breakup, was filled with the bitterness of lost opportunities and the residue of unresolved feelings. They met in a cafe, their faces drawn and tired, each of them haunted by the ghosts of their past interactions. "I didn't want to lose you," Adam admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But I never knew how to be the man you needed." Amelia met his gaze, her expression soft but resolute. "And I didn't know how to be the woman you wanted either. We weren't right for each other, Adam. We both wanted something that the other couldn't give." The silence between them stretched long and heavy. But in that silence, Amelia understood. They had played a dangerous game, one of passion, deception, and control. But in the end, it had left them both empty. The dance of seduction serves as a reminder that passion without respect, desire without trust, and attraction without emotional honesty can lead to destruction. While the initial spark of attraction can be powerful, true intimacy requires more than just physical allure. It demands communication, respect, and vulnerability. The story emphasizes that while seduction may seem thrilling, it is ultimately the deeper connection that sustains relationships. Without mutual understanding and trust, even the most intoxicating dance will come to an end, leaving only regret and longing. In the months that followed the breakup, both Adam and Amelia attempted to rebuild their lives, but neither could truly move on. The consequences of their affair echoed in their every action, and despite the distance they had placed between themselves, neither of them could quite forget the impact the other had made on their lives. Amelia returned to her routine, focusing more intently on her career than ever before. She threw herself into her work, hoping that the hours spent in meetings, brainstorming sessions, and managing her clients would erase the memories of Adam. But even as she tried to immerse herself in her professional life, the images of him, his smile, his touch, the fire in his eyes when they were together seemed to linger in the back of her mind. Every time she entered a room or saw a man who resembled him in some way, a pang of longing shot through her. Her mind, ever rational, told her that she had done the right thing by walking away from the affair. But her heart rebelled against the decision. In moments of quiet reflection, Amelia would find herself questioning the cost of her self-preservation. Was it worth severing a connection that had felt so deep, so undeniable? Or had she merely been afraid of losing herself in a relationship that threatened to overwhelm her? Her friends noticed a change in her. She was quieter, more withdrawn. She attended social events less often, preferring solitude over mingling with the crowd. The flirtations of other men, which once intrigued her, now felt hollow, insignificant compared to what she had shared with Adam. She had tasted something profound, something she could never find in a simple fling or casual date. But Adam, too, struggled with the void left by Amelia's absence. His usual bravado, his confident exterior, began to falter. He threw himself into work, throwing himself deeper into his businesses to distract from the gnawing emptiness he felt inside. But no matter how many deals he closed, no matter how many meetings he attended, he couldn't shake the memory of her. Adam had never believed in love, not in the traditional sense. He had always thought of relationships as fleeting moments, pleasurable distractions from the harder realities of life. But what he had felt for Amelia had been different. He knew that now. She had been the first woman to make him feel vulnerable, to challenge him in ways that no one else had. She made him question everything about himself, the facade he had carefully built, the armor he wore to protect himself from emotional wounds. He couldn't explain it, but he found himself yearning for her, wishing he could go back and undo the mistakes he had made. He had never been the type to regret his actions, but with Amelia, he couldn't help but wonder if he had let something precious slip through his fingers. The intensity of their connection was unlike anything he had ever experienced, and he began to realize that the carefully constructed walls he had built around himself were no match for the force of his feelings. Months after their breakup, Adam found himself at a crossroads. He had tried dating other women, but they never measured up to Amelia. No one else challenged him. No one else made him feel the way she did. Even his professional life, once a source of fulfillment, felt hollow. The weight of his success seemed meaningless when compared to the memories of Amelia. One night, unable to sleep, Adam found himself walking to the bar of a luxurious hotel in the city. He had just finished a meeting with one of his business partners, and the overwhelming feeling of loneliness pushed him to find solace in a drink. As he sat alone, nursing his whiskey, he heard the faint sound of heels tapping on the marble floor. He looked up, and there she was, Amelia. She was dressed elegantly, her hair cascading down in loose waves, her eyes filled with an enigmatic mix of resolve and vulnerability. She hadn't seen him yet, but Adam's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't expected this encounter, but in that moment, it felt almost fated. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring them back together. Their eyes met across the room, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to pause. The air between them was thick with unspoken emotions. Adam stood up, his heart racing. He took a step toward her, and for the first time in months, he felt alive, truly alive. "Amelia," he said, his voice rough, almost hesitant. "I didn't expect to see you here." Amelia gave him a small, guarded smile, her eyes betraying nothing. "I didn't expect to see you either," she replied coolly. They both stood there for a moment, sizing each other up, before Adam gestured to the empty chair next to him. "Would you like to sit?" he asked, his voice betraying a note of vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to show. Amelia hesitated, then nodded. She took a seat, her movements graceful and composed. But Adam could see the flicker of unease in her eyes. He felt a pang of guilt for how things had ended between them. But there was also an undeniable excitement in his chest. The tension between them was palpable. He had made his mistakes, but this felt like a second chance. "I've missed you," Adam said before he could stop himself. The words were out there, raw and unfiltered. He wasn't sure if he meant them in the way he had once thought, or if he just missed the sensation of being with her. Amelia met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "You have a funny way of showing it." Adam frowned, taken aback. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, her gaze intense. You played me, Adam. You made me believe something that wasn't real. I walked away because I wasn't willing to be just another one of your games. Adam felt the weight of her words settle over him like a cold wave. I never meant to hurt you, he said softly, his voice quieter than he had intended. I thought I was in control, but the truth is, I wasn't. I don't know what happened between us, but I can't stop thinking about it. About you. There was a long pause, the silence stretching between them, and for a moment, Adam wondered if it was too late, if Amelia would never trust him again. But then, to his surprise, she softened, her expression shifting from anger to something that resembled sadness. I can't just forget what happened, she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. I've spent months trying to convince myself that I made the right decision, that walking away was the only way to protect myself. And maybe it was, but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Adam swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in his throat. He had always been the one to control his emotions, to bury anything that could make him vulnerable. But in that moment, he realized how deeply Amelia had touched him. She wasn't just another woman in his life. She had been the one who made him question everything. She had made him feel, and that terrified him. I can't promise you that I'm perfect, Adam said, his voice hoarse. But I can promise that I'm not the same man I was before, and I'd like the chance to prove it to you. Amelia looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face as if trying to decipher whether he was truly sincere. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. I don't know if I can trust you again, Adam, but I'm willing to see if you can prove me wrong. The months that followed this unexpected reunion were filled with moments of tentative hope and lingering doubt. Both Adam and Amelia approached each other with caution, testing the waters of their reawakening connection. They were no longer just two people caught in the throes of a passionate affair. They were individuals trying to rebuild something more meaningful, more lasting. Adam, for the first time in his life, had to confront his own vulnerability. He wasn't used to showing his emotions or opening up to anyone, least of all to someone who had walked away from him. But he knew that if he wanted Amelia back, he had to be more than just a man who knew how to seduce. He had to be real, raw, and open with her in a way he had never allowed himself to be with anyone. Amelia, on the other hand, was learning to trust again. She had walked away from Adam once, but the pain of their separation had left a lasting scar. She couldn't just fall back into his arms without knowing that he had truly changed. But slowly, she began to see the sincerity in his actions. He wasn't perfect, and neither was she, but they were both willing to try again this time, not for the sake of passion or control, but for the possibility of something deeper. The Dance of Seduction is a tale of passion, deception, and the consequences of giving into desire, without understanding the deeper emotional connections that sustain true love. In the end, the story reveals that seduction and manipulation may offer temporary fulfillment, but it is vulnerability, trust, and honesty that build lasting relationships. The greatest risk in love is not in giving yourself to another, but in exposing your true self, flaws and all, and trusting that the other person will do the same. It is only when both partners are willing to be vulnerable and authentic with one another that the true dance of love can begin, one of mutual respect, deep connection, and emotional intimacy. As the weeks passed, Adam and Amelia's relationship, though rebuilt with caution, was still fragile. It was clear they were treading a fine line between the passionate past they shared and the uncertain future they were now trying to carve out. While there were moments of closeness, there were also moments of tension. Neither of them had fully let go of the old versions of themselves, the ones who had been wrapped up in the games of seduction, in the manipulations, in the fierce desire to be desired without giving too much of themselves away. Amelia, though softer in her approach, still harbored the fear of losing herself again. She had seen how her emotions could become entangled in someone else's narrative, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to risk that again. She had learned to live without Adam, to rely on herself and not depend on someone else for her emotional stability. But his presence, his sincerity, and the undeniable pull she still felt toward him made it hard to maintain her distance. Adam, too, was facing his own battles. He had never considered the possibility that he would have to change for someone, let alone for someone he had once taken for granted. He was used to being the one who held the power, who set the terms of engagement. But with Amelia, the rules had shifted. His usual tactics of charm, dominance, and emotional distance no longer worked. He found himself second-guessing everything he said or did, as though every word might push her further away. And yet, there was a quiet hope within him, an inkling that this time, things could be different. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner at a local restaurant, Adam could sense the walls Amelia had carefully built up. She was present, but not entirely there. Her eyes were distant, her smile more out of politeness than affection. They had gone through the motions of being a couple again, but something had shifted between them, something neither of them had fully acknowledged. Amelia looked up from her plate, meeting Adam's gaze. She could feel the weight of the unspoken words between them, the unresolved tension that neither dared to voice. "Adam," she said softly, breaking the silence, "do you ever wonder if we're just pretending? Pretending to be something we're not?" Adam's brow furrowed, the question unexpected. "What do you mean by that?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I mean, I don't know if we can go back to the way we were. I don't know if that's even what we want anymore." Adam's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't ready for this conversation, not now. Not when he was so sure they were finally on the right path. But as he looked at her, truly looked at her, he saw the vulnerability in her eyes. He saw the fear of repeating the mistakes they had both made, the fear of getting lost in the intensity of their attraction, without knowing how to sustain something real. "I don't want to go back," Adam said, his voice steady. "I want to move forward, but I know I can't move forward if I keep holding on to the past. I've made mistakes. I've hurt you, but I'm here now. I want to be here." Amelia met his gaze, her heart torn. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this time, it could be different. But there was still so much she didn't understand, so much she wasn't ready to give. "I'm scared, Adam," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to lose myself again. I've done that before. I've let someone else define who I am, and I don't think I can do it again." Adam reached out across the table, taking her hand gently in his. "You won't lose yourself, Amelia. I'm not asking you to change. I just want a chance to show you who I am, not who I was. I've been running from real connection for so long. I didn't even know what it looked like. But I see it now, and I see you." Amelia felt a surge of emotion, her heart racing. She wanted to believe him, to trust that this wasn't just another game. But old scars, wounds from their past, reminded her that words were easy, actions were harder to trust. Their relationship continued to unfold slowly, each day testing the strength of their newfound connection. Amelia still had doubts. She would catch herself watching Adam, wondering if he was still the man who had played her so easily, who had swept her off her feet, only to pull away when things got too real. She knew that if she truly let him in, she would be vulnerable, more vulnerable than she had ever been before. And the thought of being vulnerable with someone who had once manipulated her was terrifying. Adam, too, was doing his part to prove his sincerity, but he could feel the weight of her hesitation. He could sense her holding back, keeping a part of herself locked away from him. He had never been patient when it came to matters of the heart. He had always gotten what he wanted. And if he couldn't win over someone's affection with charm, he simply walked away, unscathed. But with Amelia, he realized that patience and understanding were the only ways forward. They had both learned the hard way that trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. It required more than just time, it required consistent, honest effort. They had both entered this fragile new chapter with their own fears, their own emotional baggage. But for the first time, they were acknowledging it. They weren't running from the truth anymore. One evening, as they sat together in the park after a quiet dinner, Adam turned to Amelia, his expression serious. "Amelia, I know we've been trying to take things slow, but I can't pretend anymore. I care about you more than I ever thought I would. I don't expect you to be ready to jump back in, but I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, no matter what. But I need you to take that step with me. Trust me." Amelia looked at him, the quiet night around them offering a sense of stillness that mirrored her own heart. She had thought long and hard about this moment, about whether she could trust him again, about whether she could trust herself to not lose who she was in the process. She stood up slowly, taking a deep breath. "I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go of the fear, Adam. I don't know if I can trust you completely yet." Adam stood too, taking a step toward her. "I'm not asking you to let go of the fear, but don't let it control you. Don't let it stop you from experiencing something real." There was a long pause as they both stood facing each other, the space between them charged with the weight of unspoken words and emotions. Finally, Amelia spoke, her voice quieter now. "I'll try, Adam. I'll try to trust you." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a declaration of unconditional love, but it was a beginning, a small step forward into unknown territory, a willingness to explore the possibility of something deeper, more genuine. They both understood that the road ahead would be difficult, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt, but they also knew that the only way to move forward was together. As the months passed, Adam and Amelia continued to rebuild their relationship, brick by brick. They both faced challenges, old patterns that threatened to resurface, misunderstandings that required honest communication to overcome. But with each passing day, their connection grew stronger, deeper, and more grounded. They learned to communicate more openly, to express their fears and desires without fear of judgment. Amelia slowly opened herself up to Adam, allowing him into parts of her heart she had kept hidden for so long. And Adam, for the first time, allowed himself to be vulnerable, to let go of the need for control, and to truly see Amelia not as a conquest, not as someone to possess, but as an equal partner in this intricate dance of love. They still faced moments of doubt, still had fears about the future, but now, they faced them together, hand in hand. And in those moments, they both realized that the real dance was not one of seduction or manipulation, but of mutual respect, trust, and love. The dance of seduction is ultimately a story about the complexities of love, vulnerability, and the journey towards self-awareness and mutual understanding. It shows that while desire and passion can ignite an intense connection, it is the willingness to confront one's own flaws, to communicate openly, and to build trust that allows a relationship to flourish. True intimacy is not about control, manipulation, or playing games. It is about learning to be open, vulnerable, and authentic. Only when both partners are willing to give of themselves, to be real and honest, can love truly grow and become something lasting. As their relationship continued to evolve, both Adam and Amelia faced their own internal struggles. The months spent apart had left scars that they were still learning to navigate. It wasn't just about what had happened between them, but also about how they had been shaped by their past experiences, by the people they had once been, the mistakes they had made, and the walls they had built to protect themselves. For Amelia, the wall she had constructed around her heart was made of years of self-protection, of standing on her own 2 feet in a world that often felt uncertain and unsafe. She had been betrayed before, not just by Adam, but by others in her life who had failed to honor her worth. This betrayal had etched itself into her psyche, leaving a lingering fear that love, no matter how genuine, always had an expiration date. That fear was something she couldn't shake. No matter how many times Adam assured her that he wasn't going anywhere, she would wake up some mornings, lying next to him, wondering if it was all real. The moments they shared were beautiful, but her mind still played tricks on her. What if he leaves me again? She would ask herself. What if this is just a fleeting thing? What if I'm giving too much of myself again? On the other hand, Adam was fighting his own demons. He had always been the type of person to protect himself by keeping a distance, to be the one in control, never showing weakness or vulnerability. In the past, he had used charm and allure as tools to get what he wanted. But now, with Amelia, it was different. The power dynamics weren't as simple. Amelia wasn't easily won over by words or grand gestures. She wanted consistency, honesty, and emotional intimacy. She wasn't afraid to challenge him, and that was something Adam wasn't used to. Despite the progress they had made, Adam found himself reverting to old habits at times. He would withdraw when things got too intense, or he would backpedal when Amelia's questions about their future became too serious. It wasn't that he didn't care, he cared deeply about her. It was just that his entire life had been about avoiding emotional entanglements. Now, he was being forced to confront his deepest fears, to open himself up in a way he had never done before. One evening, as they sat in the quiet of Amelia's apartment, their conversation turned toward their future. Amelia had been feeling a sense of unease, a nagging thought that they were moving forward, without fully addressing the underlying fears that still existed between them. She turned to Adam, trying to find the right words. "Do you ever feel like we're walking on eggshells?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adam looked at her, his eyes softening. He had known this conversation was coming. "I don't want to walk on eggshells with you," he said quietly. "I want us to be real. But I also know that it's hard to just jump into everything. Not after everything that's happened." Amelia sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of her cup. "I know, but sometimes I feel like we're just pretending. Like we're afraid to be fully ourselves with each other." Adam leaned forward, his hand reaching for hers. "I'm not pretending, Amelia. I'm not. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let go of the fear. I don't know how to stop holding back." Amelia felt a wave of emotion wash over her, a mixture of understanding and sadness. She knew Adam's struggle, she had seen it in his eyes, felt it in his actions. He was terrified of truly opening up, of being vulnerable. And for a moment, she realized that she, too, was holding back, afraid that if she gave too much of herself, she might lose herself in the process. "I think we're both scared," she whispered. "I think we're both still holding on to the past, to the hurt and the mistakes, and it's making it hard to move forward." Adam's hand tightened around hers. "We're not the same people we were back then. I'm not the same. I know I made mistakes. I hurt you, and I can't take that back. But I'm here now, and I'm trying." Amelia's heart ached at his words. She knew he was trying, but she also knew that trying wasn't always enough. Love wasn't just about effort, it was about understanding, about showing up for one another when it mattered the most, about being willing to face the ugly parts of oneself and share them with the other person. "I know you're trying," she said softly, "but I need more, Adam. I need more than just words. I need you to show me every day that you're not going to give up on us. I need to know that this isn't just another game for you." Adam's eyes searched hers, and for a moment, the weight of her words settled between them. He understood. He understood that this wasn't something he could fix overnight, that this wasn't about winning her back. This was about proving, day in and day out, that he was worthy of her trust. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I will earn it. I will show you every day that I'm here for the long haul." Amelia's heart fluttered, but she knew that the road ahead would still be difficult. The past was never easy to escape from, and healing wasn't something that could be rushed. But for the first time, she felt a sense of hope, a glimmer of possibility that, with time, they might be able to build something real, something lasting. As weeks turned into months, Adam and Amelia slowly began to heal. They had their ups and downs, moments of doubt, moments of fear, but there were also moments of profound connection, moments where they found themselves laughing together, enjoying each other's company without the weight of past baggage hanging over them. They learned to communicate without blame, to be honest without judgment, and to support each other through the toughest parts of their individual journeys. Amelia, in particular, found herself letting go of some of the fears that had held her back. She began to trust again, not just Adam, but herself. She realized that she didn't need to lose herself in a relationship to love someone else. She could be whole on her own, and that made her love for Adam all the more powerful. She didn't need him to complete her. She just wanted him to be part of her life, as an equal partner, someone to share her experiences with, someone to support her as she supported him. Adam, too, found himself evolving. He started to understand that love wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about giving, sharing, and being vulnerable. He had always been afraid of truly opening up, of letting someone in. But with Amelia, he discovered that vulnerability didn't mean weakness, it meant strength. It meant being open enough to let someone else see the real you, flaws and all, and trusting them to still love you for who you were. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Adam turned to Amelia, his eyes filled with a quiet sense of contentment. "I never thought this was possible," he said softly. "I never thought I could trust someone this much again." Amelia smiled, her heart full. "I never thought I could either, but here we are." And in that moment, they both realized that love wasn't about the passionate, seductive moments that had initially drawn them together. It was about the quiet, intimate moments that followed. The moments of understanding, of forgiveness, of mutual respect. The moments where they could just be themselves, fully and completely, without fear. The Dance of Seduction explores the transformation of love from something driven by passion and desire to something deeper and more meaningful. It shows that true intimacy is born not out of manipulation or games, but through vulnerability, honesty, and a willingness to confront one's own flaws. It is a story about how love can heal and transform when both partners are committed to growth, self-awareness, and trust. Only when both are able to let go of their fears and be authentic can they create a relationship that is built on mutual respect, emotional intimacy, and lasting connection. The months continued to pass in a series of small victories and setbacks,